Asbury Manor is this square right here. It's that building. That's the Manor. Those maps I showed you earlier, this is the actual location with that moat going around it. And then to the north, right here, that's a walled-in area compound for the activities that support the area. Hello, welcome back to the Three Orcs channel. This is David, and today I'm announcing update number 9 for the Verbobonc Campaign Year 576 Common Year. This is an ongoing series of updates as I create the epic campaign for the Temple of Elemental Evil. It's going to be a public website for every Dungeon Master out there to use that wants to run a campaign in the World of Greyhawk and possibly run the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign. You don't necessarily have to run that module, but any of the modules that you have in the area will work as well, because all the lands in more than the 500 square mile area will be fully keyed and detailed. All the non-player characters, all the locations, the organizations, the cities, the villages, everything. Much like the village of Hamlet, how that's keyed in the same vein that that's well developed, all my towns and villages and cities will be the same way. Now, so every NPC will be representative with their personalities, their backgrounds, what they look like, and their politics. That way, you can actually incorporate these NPCs into your campaign, into the plot lines, into things, what's going on. And preferably, what's going on with the Temple of Elemental Evil, which I keep repeating over and over again throughout all my videos, that the Temple of Elemental Evil is incorporating, using, organizing, cooperating with a lot of different organizations to continue its progress, to support its rise again, without being discovered too early before they're prepared. Now, there's obviously going to be some powerful characters that's helping them with supplies and funds and slaves and recruitment. And some of those high-level characters will most likely be in the cities like Divers or Verbobonc City. And that's another good reason why all these locations and NPCs need to be keyed and connected, so that way you can actually collaborate with all this information, put it all together, and actually create more like of a Game of Thrones type campaign that goes with the dungeon crawl of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And as well, other dungeons in the area, because the Moat House is not the only outpost for the Temple of Elemental Evil. It's only one good example of what they have out there. Each of the cults, the air, earth, fire, and water, each have their own outposts out there in the world too. And I keyed them as well in my campaign, but in this website, I haven't gotten there yet. So far, what's been completed is the city of Verbobonc, the township of Penwick, the township of Verbobonc, and now I'm announcing that the lands of Asbury, House Asbury, Asbury's domain, which is located southeast of Penwick and Asbury Meadows. That's completed. The manor itself and the lands surrounding it, including the shops and NPCs and things, that's what's going on. And all that's incorporated within the Living Greyhawk module adventures that actually run through there. So it's very important to have this all detailed out, because the players in my campaign in the first module going to the first dungeon stops there on the way there. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've done so far. We'll start off looking at the website, then we'll look at the interactive map next. So this is the Verbobonc Campaign Guide 576 Common Year that you're seeing right here, the splash screen. We'll scroll down past all the description of what this campaign's all about. Again, you don't have to run this campaign in the 576 Common Year, but it is this default timeline for running the original T1 through 4 Temple of Elemental Evil adventure module by Gary Gygax. Also the T1 module, the Village of Hamlet. So if you ever want to run that campaign, 576 Common Year is the default timeline. It doesn't mean you have to run it in that timeline. There's a lot of Dungeon Masters out there that are running theirs in 592 and up, all the way up to the 598 timeline. And that's fine, because this website, again, I keep repeating myself so it makes sure it's clear to everybody that it's not timeline specific. It's the way I wrote these articles can be used in any timeline, because these NPCs still exist, all the organizations and all the locations and all the cities and the villages still exist in either timeline, so they can be used. Also, this is rule set neutral. That means you can use this with any game system. I run my campaign in traditional Dungeons and Dragons, including Old School Essentials and Castles and Crusades, depending on the group I'm running. But it doesn't mean you can't run this campaign with later editions. What you see here is a description of the Verbobonc Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. It doesn't mean you have to run this campaign in the 576 Common Year, but this is the default timeline for running the T1 through T4 Temple of Elemental Evil module by Gary Gygax. Also, the T1 module, Village of Hamlet. That is the standard timeline that you're running it in. Back to the splash screen, I'll scroll down to the interactive map. In the lower right-hand corner, you can click on Open Full Size if you really want to interact with the map. But I'm just going to go ahead and show you from here where Penwick is. So Penwick is southeast of the city of Verbobonc, and that's Asbury Domain right there just to the east of Penwick, and to the north is Griffin Manor, which is House Millennius. Penwick is along the southern border of House Millennius. And just beyond that is House Asbury, their lands, their domain. And the Asbury domain is located just east of Penwick. We'll go ahead and scroll down to the table of contents, go to the Atlas, and click on the Viscounty of Verbobonc. And then from there, we'll go to the Asbury domain. So Asbury domain is an agricultural and administrative hub of Asbury Manor, located in the fertile Asbury Meadows within the Viscounty of Verbobonc. This domain is essential to the manor's self-sufficiency and represents a significant holding of House Asbury. From here, we'll go ahead and click on the main articles. In the main article, we have an image of Asbury Manor. This one I got from the Harn Guild by Gary Mold. This is not an image that I created, and it's a copyright-free PDF file for this location, which I used immensely to put this location together, and I used all their maps and their artwork. Down below is an article of the domain with a description, what the lands look like. Now, I went ahead and in the main article, I described Asbury Manor, the buildings in the outer yard, the mill, bakehouse, the herder, the constable, the woodward, the salter, the blacksmith. And then we have religious influence. Basically, the Church of St. Cuthbert in the village green is down the hillside. The Church of St. Cuthbert is a growing faith in the Viscounty since the Battle of Emerald Meadows. It's right now the #1 faith. And as you see in the village of Hamlet, there's a Church of St. Cuthbert there as well, because it's so important that a lot of these small villages do have a Church of St. Cuthbert, and this place is no different. And just like the village of Hamlet, there's an important Druid grove here too. The people, they worship the old faith because of their farms and their agriculture. And then there's the economic importance here, which outlines basically the political position in the Viscounty and their local alliances. Now, this article focuses on this location. And on the right-hand side is the interactive map, but down below is all the notable individuals. This is just a recap of who's here. And basically the miller, the herder, the constable, and the woodward. Then at the bottom of the article is a key black and white image that I got from the Harn Guild as well. And I credited them also in each of these images. So let's go ahead and take a look at each of these articles. The first one on the list here is Asbury Manor. So we'll go there first. Asbury Manor article has the image from Harn and a description of the location in Asbury Meadows and the manor house, how it's constructed, the windows, the roofing, the fireplaces. The domain, outer yard, is hub of the agricultural operations. And then below that is a history of this location too, and the political significance with the other lords like House Millennius and House Langmire. And you got to remember, House Millennius is the borders to the north, and House Langmire borders to the west near Etterbook. And to bring this location more alive, I added the current operations, basically as a dormitory for the houses, the single workers, managed by the bailiff and his wife, the daily operations, the local politics and relationships. So we outlined the Mayor Connor Grantham from Penwick. They still have a warm relationship there, even though it's not in her lands. There's Church of Rayo, and then I talk about the local Church of St. Cuthbert and the Order of Rayo, which is this private chapel of Rayo within House Asbury Manor. The Old Faith alliances here with House Asbury, with Obed High and Biori, which the folk venerate greatly. I have a narration, flavor text of what it looks like when you ride up on Asbury Manor, what it looks like when you walk in. And below that is a detailed layout. Now this is fully detailed, each room and each level. So that way, in case you need it, for whatever reason in your campaign, at least this is here available for you. It talks a little description of the dry moat, how deep and wide and what it consists of, the gatehouse, the courtyard, the knight retainer's quarters. Sir Thomas Hadley is one of the major characters here at the location. He has his own separate article. He's one of the few knights that's loyal to House Asbury. I figured, it's a noble house. They should have some knights under them. This is the main one right here. And this would be the This would be Lady Eleanor's main retainer. And also, he shares his fine room with his wife, Hazel. They don't have any children, but they're trying to. So I add little things for role-playing purposes. You never know, you might get in a conversation with him. Then the sage's quarters, which is Vigo. Vigo is employed to educate the household, and he also doubles as a classroom and children and things like that. I'm not going to go into too much detail of these locations because you'll just get lost. But I have to go back and forth between the map and this key location. But there's a Chamberlain, Olaf Berg. These major NPCs are detailed on the right, and they also have their own articles as well, usually. So there's the Chamberlain right here, and that's a picture of him. And then below that is Sir Thomas Hadley, and he has his own article too, which is a quick link there for you. And his squire, Keld, he has his own article too. And below that is the Sage. He has his own article. Everything you know about him, his background, politics, his relationships. And below that is the Ostler, and then below that is the priest of the Order of Rayo. So this manor has its own chapel to Rayo. And there's a good reason for that, because if you look at the background of the Order of Rayo, one of their biggest worshippers, they've lost a lot of worshippers in the past since the Battle of Emery Meadow. Their worship has fell off, but the nobles still highly venerate the Rayo because he is a beacon of peace and reason, and nobles, when it comes to politics, they really appreciate a god that will help them with that sort of thing. And then below that is all the maps of each level. So real quick, on the left here, we got the kitchen, we have the great hall, the bathhouse, the brew house, the granary, the kennel, and stables. So let's go ahead and look at the first level. Now, the first level is keyed. Number 1 is the gatehouse. And it has all the, I love this map because it has all the windows, which is important, and all the doors and which way the doors swing in or out, which is great. And it shows you the battlements. And it shows you all the different rooms. So if the players were to stay the night, you know what room they're going to be in. And you know where all the NPCs are too. The Great Hall's on the left. That's number 8. That's the big banquet they're going to have with Lady Eleanor, especially after they finish the first module and they're rewarded, kind of like the end of the Star Wars Episode 4, where they get awarded for their success in their what she recruited them for, to recover the jewels of House Asbury since Emery Meadows was lost. On the right-hand side is the stables. So if the characters have any horses, they can be brought there. I usually role-play that out when they leave and arrive. The horses are taken away into the stables, and then they're led to their rooms, and then they're led to the Great Hall for the banquet, the feast. Okay, back to the main article, Asbury Manor. Scroll down to level 2 here. And the second floor is a guard room, infirmary, the chapel to Rayo. The priest, he's the actual detailed character with his own article as well. His name is Ralph. And he's the resident priest of Rayo there at the manor. The steward's room, Sir Armont, is a very important character for the campaign. That is a solar and a catwalk. The catwalk's really interesting because it encircles the Great Hall above. That way you can put crossbowmen up there, even down at the people eating if you need to. There's a hayloft, the east parapet, steward's room. Botita Greensward is the cousin of Baroness Eleanor Asbury, and she actually comes into play later on in the Living Greyhawk modules. So she's an important figure in one of those adventures. So I included her here and her room. That way you can introduce her earlier in the campaign, so she's not a stranger later on if you decide to run the adventure. There's a guest room and then a clothing room. The third floor is the guard room, sleeping loft. Usually, I label that adventurers because at first, when the players first get to Asbury Manor and they're not heroes yet, I just have the pages lead them there. That's where they're going to spend the night, in the sleeping loft. That way they're all sleeping together in one location, which is pretty much just an attic. I also wrote some flavor text for that location, so that way I'm prepared to run through it quickly enough where I had this stuff prepared beforehand so I don't waste too much time. I just describe to them what they see when they get up in there. The squire's loft, that's where Keld is, the squire, and the strong room, that's where all the treasure is, and the loft. And the fourth floor is the gatehouse and the Great Hall parapet, the battlements above. And then there's the cellar, which is the kitchen cellar and seed stores. Now, as you can see from on the right-hand side, the second floor is right here. The first floor is this one on the right. That shows the gatehouse going through across the moat and the drawbridge. Scrolling down is the second floor, and scrolling down again is the third floor. And there's the loft, the number 2, top right-hand corner. And then at the very bottom is the fourth floor, which is really only the battlements. And then the last map is the basement. Okay, we're going to take a look at the interactive map. Now this interactive map, the map itself is by Harn. I borrowed it for this description of this area. And as you look at it closely, Asbury Manor is this square right here. It's that building. That's the manor. Those maps I showed you earlier, this is the actual location with the moat going around it. And then to the north, right here, that's a walled-in area compound for the activities that support the area. I'll show you that in a minute. So these are all keyed. So Asbury Manor, if I click on that, it'll take us back to that article. And to the north is this area. A is the hay barn. There's a large building, stores animal feed for the winter. Fresh, sweet hay is piled into the barn throughout the summer. B is the herb garden. It's a small walled pleasure garden with flowers and herbs popular with the nobles. C is the slaughterhouse, where the animals are brought to be slaughtered. And D is the salting house, where after being slaughtered, they get salted. And then E is the vegetable garden. And F is the shearing shed, where they take the sheep in to get the wool. And G is the bull shed. That's where they keep the bull separated from the rest of the cattle. And H is the cow house. That's where they shelter them in bad weather or at night. That's where they milk them too. That's the milking barn. J is the oxen stalls. The oxen they use to plow the fields. And K is the stables. That's for the stables for the entire estate, for the House Asbury and her guard. And L is the cart house. That's the house where she has her cart, her royal noble cart that she used to travel through the countryside, back and forth to the Valuna and the city of Verbobonc. It's the orchard. This is apple, cherry, peach, and pear trees. So this estate is really self-sustaining. In the woods is game, where they do hunting, which there's a huntsman here in one of those buildings down there as his job to protect it against poachers. Further south are these little tiny man-made ponds. They're called weirs. Weirs, it's a medieval term. It's been built across the stream to retain water. Trout is reared in the ponds and consumed at the manor house. So they even have fresh fish. There's a scale, 200 feet. And if you go north, a lot of these buildings are keyed. The first building that's keyed is number 3. Number 3 is the Church of St. Cuthbert and the Village Green. We'll go ahead and click on that and scroll to the bottom here. Click on full article so we can see the whole thing. Now, this is the Church of St. Cuthbert. It's a chapel, and it's a newly built chapel that serves the spiritual needs of this community. It's known locally as the Vigilant Sanctuary, newly constructed chapel in the Asbury domain. It's established by Bishop Hoffren of Verbobonc to honor the contributions of Asbury Manor during the war against the Temple of Elemental Evil. It talks about its agriculture, the interior, the village green. The village green is a communal space in front of the church, surrounded by lush grass and dotted with flowering trees. It serves as a gathering place for villagers. It's also served for merchant caravans to come through, their wagons. That's where they camp out at, or sell. And it's also used for market day. The role of the church, this is the religious services in the community hall and the social hub. Talks about that. Talks about the village green, more of what I just said. On the right-hand side is a picture and some dialogue. Canon Gunter Ashton, he's stern and somewhat distant cleric. He serves as the local canon since the Battle of Emery Meadows. I have his appearance and personality and background, motivation, and relationships that he has, and a picture of him. Also, that serves with him at the church is Priest Adam Nibley. Now, Priest Adam Nibley doesn't have his own article. Now to the next location. This, number 4, is right out on the north side of that clearing, the green. This is a very important location because it has a lot to do with the first module called Noble Ambitions. This is the forge. It's empty. It's the smithy, the blacksmith building. And Lady Asbury is desperately looking for one to serve the village's needs, her domain's needs. You know, they need to make horseshoes and plows and shears, anything that the farmers would need. They don't have one right now. There is no blacksmith for this entire area. The closest blacksmith would be in Penwick. That means they have to go there into the lands of House Millennius and buy, or get serviced blacksmith needs there in that town. And that's not very convenient. And it's also an embarrassment to the domain because they want to be self-sufficient. They don't rely on House Millennius at all, for a lot of political reasons that we'll get later on in the campaign. So this location, describes what it looks like inside and outside, the background and current status. The Iron Health Forge has long been a cornerstone of Asbury Domain, providing essential services to the community. However, it stands unused and empty. Lady Eleanor is desperate in need of a skilled blacksmith to bring the forge back to life, supporting her fief and tenants and farms. And then she has motivations of why this is happening. So this is a very interesting location. Next location. Back to the main article here. In the map on the right, I didn't blow it up for you this time, but there's other locations here, which is a common type of shops or services that you'd find in a community like this. We don't have to go over every one of them, but they're there for use in the campaign, including the NPCs that go with them, which includes the mill and bakehouse, the salter, the wood yard, and the woodward. They have different duties. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at him. Besides him, there's just the herder, the cottage herder. Let's go ahead and look at the constable. So there's a picture of him, and the article outlines his duties and responsibilities with law enforcement, his commanding roles, and his community role. On the right-hand side, he's a level 5 fighter. He's got personality, background, and motivation, and everything you need to know about him. Okay, this wraps up update number 9, the domain of House Asbury, Asbury Manor, and Asbury Meadows. I hope this serves your need in your campaign of Temple of Elemental Evil or the Viscounty area. If you have any comments of what you would like to see in these descriptions, let me know. Anything you'd like changed or anything you'd like to add, anything more you want me to focus on. Also, you're welcome to come join the Discord. There's a lot of us DMs in there that actually talk about this for hours every day, working on this project, creating these locations and NPCs. And we're going to start tackling these adventures as well, incorporating that into these locations. And if you want to join us and to collaborate, you're more than welcome to join us.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It's best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
So, thank you for your time. I hope that your adventure and your campaign is epic, as exciting as mine has been for my players.